Thank you, Zimbabwe, for tuning into yet another informative edition of your program. This is Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, in support of Vision 2030, a platform which was specifically created for our farming community here in Zimbabwe and the various stakeholders, including state-owned enterprises and even farmers who fall under the fraternity of agriculture right here in Zimbabwe. Now, if you look at our cropping calendar, we are in the 2023-2024 production season, whereby farmers are engaging in various activities to ensure that they are fully geared for the production season. In this very episode, we are going to be looking at land preparation ahead of this cropping season. And to discuss this in more in detail, I've taken the liberty of inviting Wendy Madzura, an agronomist who's working with different farmers here in Zimbabwe to ensure that they are sustainable and profitable within their ventures. Wendy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Wadza, for having me. Again, it's always a pleasure.
If you look at it, Wendy, generally before we get into planting and establishing our crop in this summer cropping season, we first of all look at the weather conditions.
Indeed.
What are we looking at this season? The rainfall patterns, what is it like?
Thank you so much, Wadza, for that well-timed and pertinent question. According to the Meteorological Services Department, they were telling us that we are expecting to have an El Nino phenomenon, which is a phenomenon which usually is associated with drought in the southern parts of Africa, and Zimbabwe included. So with that said, it's important for our farmers to also prepare and also look for mitigation measures for them to reduce the risks associated with El Nino. That include drought, the unpredictable nature of the season, the distribution of the rainfall. So the 2023-24 farming season is said to be a normal to below normal rainfall season. But our farmers should not lose hope, because farming is a livelihood. Farming is a business. So with that, we need to find measures to mitigate the effects of this talked about El Nino, so that we still produce and remain viable in our farming enterprises.
Now, Wendy, aligning rainfall patterns to land preparation, you would find that there is a relationship between the two. When you are expecting maybe heavier rainfalls, or those that you said that they will be below normal rainfalls, there has to be ways in which you can mitigate and make sure that you are protecting your investment, which is your crop establishment. Can you talk to us in terms of the various activities that our farming community is engaging in, aligning it to land preparation ahead of maybe soybean planting, tobacco planting, maize production, etc.?
In a bid to move hand in glove with the sustainable agriculture initiatives that the globe is currently tasked with, we as a country are also pushing through our parent ministry and the various stakeholders for conservation farming practices. But with that said, we also know that different farming enterprises are being done by our farmers, and different farming operations, so to say, are being done by our farmers in a bid to prepare for the next farming season. Failure to plan also equates to planning to fail. So as you can see in the background, we are seeing some land preparation which is going on. So land preparation should also be married to the nature and the type of field that the farmer will be establishing a crop in. For example, the field that we are seeing here, it's virgin land. It hadn't been cropped in for a very long time. So what it means is a farmer should come in with primary tillage using conventional methods of tillage. So here we are seeing they're coming in with a disc, then they'll come in with a reaper, so that they also plow into deeper horizons to increase the infiltration of water and root penetration. So primary tillage has its place in the farming space, and some farmers you find that conventional tillage, whereby you are reaping, you are plowing, you're coming in the disc and the roller, it also works in some instances where you want to come in after about 3 seasons or 4 seasons to break the plow pen, so that you also then introduce some penetration and aeration into your soil so that your crops grow well. But with that said, we also want to move with the times and also align accordingly, associated with the mitigation measures as well for El Nino, where we are saying conventional methods of farming are not only for the resource-constrained farmers, but the commercial farmers can also employ conservation farming practices through investing in technologies like the no-till or still-till planters, or they can come in with a reaper, like what we are going to be talking about in this particular segment and this particular program. So we want to discuss some of the commercial farming methods that are associated with conservation, that include coming in with a reaper. So the reaper will just open up the lines, and then the planter will come and plant directly on the ripped rows. Or the farmer can invest in modern innovative technologies that include the use of no-till or zero-till planters. So these are also technologies for conservation, because they also protect the environment and reduce the need for over-pulverization of the soil through primary or conventional tillage.
Thank you so much, Wendy. That was very detailed, looking at it from a perspective of using a disc harrow during land preparation. We're going to cross over and look at the activities and how it is done using a reaper. Stay tuned. From the disc harrow that was preparing land where we were at before this segment, Wendy, can you take us through the activities that are taking place here? I understand that we are standing in front of an implement that they refer to as a reaper. Can you talk to us in terms of its activities and maybe the advantages associated with using a reaper?
Thank you so much, Wadza. So as we highlighted earlier on, both methods of land preparation, conventional and conservation, have a place in agriculture. Though we are moving more towards conservation because it's more sustainable and more long-term in terms of the farming operations of the farmer, particularly looking at a season like the one we have, the El Nino season. So the purpose of you coming in with such a robust implement, which is the reaper, which can plow to a depth of above 45 centimeters, is that you get a deeper depth in terms of the horizon, in which the water can also then infiltrate deeper into the soil, and then the root system as well can also spread freely within that horizon. And if you check, you can see that in between the rows which have been ribbed by the reaper, the land has not been disturbed. And you can even tell from the thicket of the straws of wheat that are there, that the wheat and the barley crop which was established here was very well populated, and the tillering and everything, the management was on point. So the stover that is left on the surface will then help in terms of the retention of the moisture, particularly in the season that we have this year, where we are expecting to have a normal to below normal season. So you need to conserve and preserve the moisture as much as possible, other than you having bare ground that has been pulverized and over processed. You need to also get such a situation where you are moving hand in glove with conservation, which has 3 pillars: minimum soil disturbance, permanent ground cover, and rotations. So that's what we are seeing here, where we had a crop of barley and we had a crop of wheat, and now they are leaving the stalks there to act as the mulch to protect and conserve the moisture.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for such a detailed presentation. On that note, viewers, we've come to the end of the first segment. We're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the second segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, in support of Vision 2030. In this very episode, we are looking at land preparation, the 2023-2024 production season, where our farmers are going to be engaging in establishing their field crops ahead of the rainy season. Now, viewers, we encourage you to be a part of these conversations. Feel free to get in touch with the producer, Wadzanai Manyore. It's on 0772-807-506. Alternatively, you can like our Facebook page, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. Make a follow-up on this episode and more, and leave your comments and suggestions on our YouTube channel, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. We're also now available on X, formerly known as Twitter. It's at Agribusiness 110. Now, earlier on, before into the break, when Dimatashu Madzura was just enlightening us on how this reaper works, its depth, and what it seeks to achieve ahead of planting. In this very segment, I have reserved it for Tawanda Pasipanojga, who's going to be taking us through the nitty-gritties of land preparation ahead of establishing a maize crop in this field that was formerly holding wheat and barley. Tawanda, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Wazo, for hosting me.
Yes. As we get into our discussion, Tawanda, for the sake of our audience and our farming community here in Zimbabwe, can you just enlighten us on what is taking place? I understand that where we are standing here, there was wheat, and now we have a reaper. What are the processes that lead to having your reaper within your field?
Okay. Yeah, this is the most interesting part of the farming activities. Okay, I will just try to mix the languages so that everyone can understand.
Yes.
So as a farmer, I'm someone who's practical, so I'm just trying to explain whatever is happening here. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I have my stick here. It's approximately 45 centimeters and above, same as our tines on the reaper. So first of all, after harvesting, we don't burn our stover. We actually spread it. The harvester, we let the harvester spread the stover on the field. Then we just measure from one tine to the next tine. It's 75 centimeters.
Okay.
Yes. So even the height of the tine is approximately, as I've said before, about 45 centimeters. Mm-hmm. But nozo we are planta manje ta measure 75 centimeters zedu about this field to research bag. So tenta to calculate achi pachapinda neplanter yedu kudhara. So this tinozviitira water retention, and the stove tinoitira water retention as well. Tinochengetedza manyowa yedu patinoisa fertilizer yaya, residual nitrogen yaya inodzoka futi back ichishandiswa yakureleaswa nemarara edu ari mustove yedu.
Yes. Now, Tawanda, I want you to talk to us in terms of that process yamunoita of pre-irrigating a bit. Just the advantages or why you do it. I understand that you irrigated before you came in with this ripper.
Yes. On the irrigation part, there's a soil pan underneath the surface. So mukurima kwatinoita kana ukashandisa implement diki, that's why we're trying to use something chinoenda deeper down the soil. If you use something like a romaro isingadzike ine madisc apera, maybe inogona kuitira 10 centimeters ichitadza kubreaka the pan. So we irrigate so that pasi panopfava, patinopinda neripa inonobreaka that pan underneath.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, Tawanda, for some who might be watching at home, they don't understand. It looks confusing. Kuti vakutodyara makadai imomo. Talk to us in terms of maybe the advantages. I understand that you spoke of moisture retention. Just the process for them to understand. It looks like the field is unkempt. It's unbecoming. Also, they know that unotouya wotodiska, then you achieve fine tooth. But if fine tooth apapana, iringori ripa rikutongopinda, next makutoya ne planter. Just your emphasis on educating our farmers at home.
Yes, first of all, I'll start by the government actually implemented the Fumvudza. The reason why they implemented that, kuti unochera makomba before the rain comes. Kuitira kuti panopinda mvura paipai, panopinda mvura makomba, panonaya mvura, ichipinda makomba inokwanisa kunoricha down kuitira maroots ako painosvika kuzasi. Then on the stove part, apa tangozviitira kuti this stove ikwanise kuchengeta mvura, because apa takupinda musizini yeunino. We never know kuti mvura inenge yakawanda sei kana kuti inenge iri shoma sei. So this is actually a mulch. It actually helps the surface kuti pasava ne evaporation yakawanda.
Now, as you can see, viewers, we already have a tractor with a mounted planter on it, where we are going to be looking on how they are going to be establishing their maize, their irrigated maize crop. Stay tuned. Now, Tawanda, as we close this segment, could you just maybe give us the highlights of this planting process? What do you do? How soon do you come with water? And what are some of the processes that you engage in to ensure that the planting is successful? Because in every cropping venture, you would find that the most important part is the establishment of the plant.
So as we can see, we've came over from our land preparation. So this is actually the second crucial stage of planting, of actually agriculture per se, as a whole. So I'll just try to explain what we do in vernacular. So pana patava ne planter yedu patava ta measure ma 75 centimeters yedu ne reaper. Planter yedu is also calibrated to 75 centimeters. So we actually calibrate for the seed, and we actually calibrate for the fertilizers as well. So the initial stage of planting, it's actually the date. We tinofana okutobata mazuva ekuplanta in time. So that's around from mid-October to the end of October. Kana mchita
irrigated commercial maize.
So pana pataka calibrate and 75 by in row 26 centimeters. So we are trying to achieve population of 55,000 plants per hectare. For us to achieve actually the yield food per hectare. Then after planting, to know some herbicides Tunesa herbicides they do. Then after taisa herbicides they do to control the soil. Tunova taisa mvura immediately after planting.
Okay. Finally, Tawanda, as a young person, what would you want to say, your sentiments in this endeavor, in farming, your words of encouragement? You'd find that most of the youth are crying out there, and yet you are here full time in Banket working with your dad. What would you want to say to those who are watching? Some what my parents are, but they they think kungauru kubasa kwenda office mune aircon. What would you want to say to the youth who are watching?
Personally, for me, this is actually a career I chose. I actually see myself as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a business per se as a whole. Yeah, and mangwan because of this. Yes. Zvatosiyana nekuswera wagara mutown. Mari yayo inouya mari tens anouya later on, but they are actually bigger because anenge akruwa.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Tawanda. It was a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you, Wazza.
On that note, viewers, we've come to the end of the second segment. We're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more, giving you tips on how to establish your irrigated commercial maize. Stay tuned. Thank you, viewers, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. Today, we are looking at land preparation of the 2023-2024 production season. And in this segment, we are going to be giving each other tips on how to establish your maize, your irrigated commercial maize. Wendy, thank you for joining us. We are here in the third and final segment.
Indeed, Wadza. Thank you so much. So one important thing that our farmers should take note of is the fact that when you have the resources, when you have the irrigation, nothing should stop you from planting early so that you also catch the season and catch the next cropping program, which is to say when you establish your future crop, you'll be able to plant your next wheat crop on time. So it starts with you making sure that you've planted this summer crop timelessly. So we are seeing that most farmers with an early crop of wheat manage to harvest their wheat on time, which is to say by the end of September, early October, they had harvested. So most of them will also be aiming to plant a maize crop mid-October, which is to say they then optimize on the heat units that the crop requires. Did you know that was 40% of the heat units that are required for the crop to grow optimally and give very high yields are received from October to December? So this is another trick that these commercial farmers with irrigation use. They then optimize and maximize. They get the best out of their crop. So we really are imploring on those farmers with irrigation to not lose the chance for them to go in timelessly and plant on time. So that's what we are talking about today, irrigated cropping, which is to say you have an advantage over the rest of the country, which is waiting for rain-fed agriculture.
Could you cite some of those advantages that farmers like this one have over those who are waiting for rain-fed agriculture, the advantages that come with having an irrigated maize crop?
Some of the advantages include the fact that you'll be able to harvest early. For example, if you want to come in with a winter wheat crop, you then also harvest on time and then come in with your crop without having to wait for the dry down of the summer crop. And also it gives the farmers who want to establish a summer crop a wider range of options in terms of the varieties of different maturity groups that they can establish. They can then choose to establish a late maturing variety, which takes time in the field because the time is there. They can then establish that one and get the highest yield because those varieties might be associated with giving them high yields. Then there are some farmers who might want to then do multiple cropping. They can put an early crop of green mealies, they can put an early crop for silage, then come in with a sugar bean crop or another crop which they can establish around January, February. Maybe it's a horticulture crop like onion, like potato. So having irrigation enables a farmer to have a wider option in terms of what they can establish at any given time. Because in the business of farming, you should aim to be sending something to the market at the end of every month or every 2 months, which is to say you should be having multiple cropping programs. So with irrigation, it gives you that advantage over those farmers who are doing 100% rain-fed.
Finally, your word of advice to those farmers who are getting into irrigated maize production. You'll find that there are some key fundamentals that they need to take cognizance of. In every cropping venture, be it rain-fed or irrigated, there are some fundamentals that each one needs to look at. What are those that you would want to cite so that they really look at them and say, you know what, we need to address this so that we have a good yield at the end of the season?
So the farmers with irrigation, one key attribute about them is that they are in business because farming for them is not a hobby or something that they do extracurricular. They also want to get money out of it. So they also need to look at the plant population at which they'll be establishing their crop, guided by the variety that they will be establishing. Particularly looking at late maturing varieties, they might want to come in with populations that range between 50 to 55,000 plants per hectare. Remember the discussion that we had a bit earlier on about the heat units, which is to say those crops are going to grow very tall because of those high heat units, depending on the variety. So they need to strike a balance. Yes, the world might be saying we are going for higher plant populations, but there might not be a benefit in terms of the yield that is going to be achieved. So optimum plant populations should be aimed for in terms of the implements, the calibration that they will be doing, and calibration plays a pivotal role in you establishing a healthy and good crop stand, which also speaks to the yield that you're going to get. And having an early crop also helps the farmer in terms of them also coming in with the need to timeously check for problematic insect pests, their top dressing, and also when the rains start with irrigation, you then get an advantage because your crop is already at an advanced stage. So the irrigation or the rain, they also work hand in glove to make sure that productivity is increased. But the most important thing is for them to plant timeously because they want to catch the cropping program that follows. If they fail to do so, it will have a ripple effect for the next 2 to 3 seasons.
Yes.
They'll be playing catch up because they'll always be late. So if you plant with irrigation on time, you can come in smiling for the next cropping season.
As we close, could you hype our farmers? I understand that those who are into irrigated crop are the frontline soldiers against hunger. Kurudzira varimi wendi vakuenda kumunda. You're parting words to them as you hype them ahead of the production season.
Ndinotenda zvikuru varimi. Kurima inzira yeraramo. Kurima inzira yebhizimusi. Hino torega kurima here nekuti kwanzi zvichida mvura ichadaro iri shoma. Aiwa bodo. Ndiri kuti ngatiwanewo nzira dzekuchengetedza mvura yatinenge tawana. Torima mbesa dzinofambirana nenharaunda. Tichiziva isusu kuti kurima inzira yekuti tiwane pundutso. Tisaputse chirongo, isu tanga tatosvika kurima kwedu kwave pamberi senyika yeZimbabwe.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It was a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you so much, Wadza. It's always a joy and a pleasure.
From me, your host was Zanai Manyore. I'm also on Instagram. It's a W Manyore. And the crew behind the scenes. Have yourselves a fabulous evening. Thank you for watching.